Hey guys, welcome to the Wrestling Escape Pod and welcome to this very, very fun episode. I'm really looking forward to this because we are going to be singing about the unsung heroes and talking about unsung.
This is a musical episode?
This is a musical episode. I hope that you are ready to bring
I didn't prep.
No, look, you'll be all right. You'll be all right.
Okay.
But talking of unsung heroes, we've got our very own I can't even say it. Our very own unsung, our very own honey bun, the Boston boy, Tommy Toy Travels. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing. It's hot. I won't lie. It's very hot.
Is it warm? So you're in Boston, aren't you? There's wildfires over in California,
Cali,
is it?
Which is the other side of the world, basically.
Yeah, the other side of the world. But I should imagine that that's an indicator of what temperature is like in America.
In all of America, yes.
In all of America.
Yes.
So, but you're saying it is very hot where you are as well?
It's hot and humid, so I'm like...
It's not been that bad here in the UK. It was quite humid the other night, to the point where it was a little bit uncomfortable to try to get to sleep. But really, other than that, it's been pretty standard. Like, you can go out. It's just a bit overcast. So I'm struggling to relate. Right now, I just can't feel any sympathy for you whatsoever.
That's fine. And I wasn't looking for sympathy.
Oh well, good. Because you'll get none here. Perfect. Shout out to you all the same. How has your week been?
How has your week been?
Pretty non-eventful, if I'm being honest.
Same.
Pretty non-eventful.
I'm really glad that we're on the same.
My week was dominated by All Out. Did you see All Out?
Actually, Days, I'm a liar. I got some big updates. I know some of the Tree fans are going to love this.
Okay.
I have new neighbors over there.
Hello, really?
Yeah.
How close are they?
They're like right there.
What do you mean they're right there? What do you mean if you put the blind up, they're right there?
Mm-hmm. And they use...
Hello, my name's Sandra. Like, is she like right in the window?
Yeah. They use it as like a smoking window, so they just stand there looking into my window.
You know your new name.
It's got to be like Austin 316's family.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If they're that close, the only person that I can think's moving next door to you and staring through your windows is Austin 316, who, for the record, we do love. We do love. I know we give him a little bit of ribbon, but nothing but love for Austin 316 and his weird family that are staring through your windows. But yeah, shout out to you, dude. So right, they're right there. What are they like as people? Are they good people? Have they got good hearts?
It's too soon to know.
Have you not invited them round?
Of course not. There's a global pandemic happening right nowadays.
That is true. That's a fair point. Have you changed the setting on your voice as well?
Why, do I sound like a robot?
Yeah, it's gotten really weird. I've only just noticed. I think I've been talking to you for about 10 minutes and I hadn't noticed.
No, I did break my mic, though. Remember when I said nothing happened this week? I broke my mic.
Dude,
I got new neighbors.
Dude, your voice has gone weird. I don't know what you've done. I don't know if I'm in a horror film. Have I slipped into a horror film?
It's Retribution.
You sound...
Gotta be Retribution.
You are starting to sound like the hacker from SmackDown. You're starting to sound like it's...
Who is the hacker? Did we find out?
It's dropped the pitch of your voice. I can't cope with having a conversation with you like this. What has happened to you? You've broken your microphone.
I'll speak a little higher.
Yeah, you get...
Okay, it's better.
It's a... I can cope with that more. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm getting a bit turned on, actually. Nice to meet you.
Oh, am I like Darth Vader?
Dude, this is strange.
Or am I Retribution, Donovan Dijak cutting a promo?
Yeah, you've gone.
Oh, we're Retribution.
I don't know what to do right now because it's very bizarre.
Is it fixed?
Oh yeah, it's fixed. Yes.
There we go.
What was it?
Problem solving.
The pitch just.
I
dropped.
don't know what it was.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's still dropping.
No. But it had.
Okay.
Officially, we just got invaded by Retribution. Perhaps.
We did.
Do you know what I think's happened there? I think Retribution have moved in next door to you, and they were just getting a little bit uncomfortable with the direction that conversation was going in. Mm-hmm. Things were getting a little bit too hot for them, and they were like, "We need to distract here. We've got to do some quickly." Hacked in, and changed your settings. Because in all fairness, it might be worth just telling people that before we started recording, you couldn't hear me.
I couldn't hear you, no.
And it turns out that my settings had changed for this as well. Completely out of... I haven't changed them. Something's going down in Retribution Town.
Big time. Big time.
Talking of big time, should we talk about some superstars that wished they could make it to the big time? These were the superstars that helped others reach the big time. These are what are, well, controversially known as jobbers. And the reason why I say
talent.
Yes, what would you refer to them as? I'm using the word jobbers in the title and on the thumbnail. But
genuinely, I had no idea what to talk about for this episode. I didn't know whether we were going to talk about good jobbers, bad jobbers, the idea of jobbers, what makes someone actually a jobber. Like, if you win, are you still a jobber, or does that totally change who you are? So I don't really have a list.
Yep.
But I researched and I'm ready to discuss.
Well, I have what I think a lot of people would regard as the 3 greatest jobbers of all time. So I have a list, but I'm up for opening this out for a bit of conversation because I think that's going to be quite interesting. So I suppose.
So to start off, in your mind, Days, is a good jobber one that puts over the other guy, or is a good jobber one that battles through and finally gets the big dub?
For me, a jobber is someone that puts over the other guy. If someone's going to battle through and get... I mean, jobbers will always get wins. There's, to my knowledge... I would struggle to name anyone in WWE that never got a victory. Even though, I mean, of course you get people that get brought in for 1 week, but I'm talking about people that are actually signed up on the roster. Because a lot of these jobbers that we're going to be talking about, or the ones that I've got on my list, some of them worked with WWE for 30 odd years. Now, within that time, they're going to have picked up victories, you know,
a couple.
Yeah, here and there. But of course, there's people. Yes, I mean, of course, there's people that are brought in for 1 week because they're local talent. Those are still jobbers, if you will, but they're not really the jobbers that I'm focused on. They can't be regarded as the best if they get brought in for one shot. I'm focused on those that were really signed up to WWE. It's really weird because you don't have them now. You don't really... I suppose Curt Hawkins would be someone that was the closest we had to a jobber recently. And he had his losing streak. And
the B-team.
Yeah, B-team, yeah. So it's kind of strange because they have these superstars that they sign up with great potential. Curt Hawkins, of course, the son of... No, I'm getting confused. I'm getting confused with Curtis Axel.
Well, Curt Hawkins is the son of Mr. Hawkins.
But that is true. I could have finished that sentence. But no, I mean, Curt Hawkins is someone that has had wins in the past and had great potential. And seemingly has been switched into that jobber role. But actually, the reason why I was getting confused with Curtis Axel is because the same happened there. and that was a name that I wanted to move on to, as you said, with the B team, because Curtis Axel is someone that was brought in as the son of Mr. Perfect, but ultimately became a jobber. I mean, with the B team. Same with Bo Dallas. Do you know what I mean? Bo Dallas, NXT champion. Yeah, all he did was job out when he got to the main roster. So jobbers, they come in many different forms. They arrive in many different ways. Some of them can have success and then it changes. Some of them can be brought in with being a jobber in mind from the very, very beginning. So it's very interesting, but I'm not aware of any long-term jobber that never got at least one win or whatever. So for me, a good jobber is someone whose primary focus is to sell, put over people's moves, make their opponent look absolutely awesome. And can I just say, I sensed your voice had changed again at the end when you last spoke. Not to make you paranoid or anything.
Okay.
Yes, boom.
We'll work with it.
Okay. This is going to be a Mega Lols episode, isn't it? Where your voice is going to constantly...
I'm the jobber. My mic's the jobber.
Your mic's the jobber?
No, because it's not putting me over.
No, it's a bad jobber.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on a jobber then?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's more important that they lose than to win, to finally get that win, because then they're not really a jobber. It's just someone fighting their way up.
I mean, I've got an example. The first example I'm going to give of, I'll throw one of my three in. This is just the third one I've got. Iron Mike Sharpe. He had some success in the 70s in the NWA. He worked in the territories and actually won a few championships. And came into WWF in 1983. He would end up staying with WWE, WWF for about 10, 12 years. And he would work all throughout the 80s, into the early 90s. And the thing was, when you needed to put over a new star on TV, they would be put in there against a jobber. And honestly, you could say that Dolph Ziggler has kind of become a jobber now. Because when someone comes up from NXT, one of the first matches they tend to have is against Dolph Ziggler. Yeah. And they tend to win that match as well. I'm pretty sure Dolph Ziggler's won one match at the time of recording this in 2020, on TV. And
on Raw Underground.
Yeah, well, it's really surprising to see that someone like Dolph Ziggler now finds himself in that situation. But back in the 80s, they wouldn't have necessarily used someone like Dolph Ziggler, someone that was a mid-card talent. They had actual jobbers on the roster, and Iron Mike Sharpe was one. He called himself Canada's greatest athlete. He did get a slight push when he first came in, and he actually even faced Bob Backlund in 1983 for the WWE Championship. It wasn't like a massive deal. I don't know if it was on house shows or whatever, but they gave him a little push to the point where they put him up against Bob Backlund. In 1988, he even made it to the second round of King of the Ring. On a Japanese tour, he was the partner for Hulk Hogan in some tag matches. So,
good for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that he achieved and did, but really outside of that, he faced everyone that was around and lost. And that was his purpose. That's what he did. He was quite famous for having OCD. He was called backstage Mr. Clean. He was called Mr. Clean because he would still be there long after everyone had gone, cleaning up the locker room. Not just cleaning, but deep cleaning. Yeah. Really OCD, getting stuck into stuff. And there's a story about him not wanting to put over Billy Jack Haynes. And for some reason, Billy Jack Haynes thought he was getting put over. Iron Mike Sharpe didn't want to do it, or there's a bit of controversy as to whether he was told to not do it by Vince because Billy Jack Haynes had upset Vince. So Iron Mike Sharpe was refusing to put him over. And the two of them got into a nasty fight backstage. And it was a pretty brutal beatdown. Iron Mike Sharpe really got battered around by Billy Jack Haynes backstage for not putting him over. So there's some really interesting stories that you can... Brooklyn Brawler, who we will talk about later, he's got a book that came out, an audio book and everything. It's got some really interesting stories in it. Because these people have been around for 30-odd years. I mean, they've seen it all. They were backstage during it all. And even though they were there to just lose, they were still friends with the talent and part of the locker room, you know? So there's some interesting stuff in the world of jobbers.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
One of the things that I was going to talk about was the notion of being called a jobber. We kind of touched on it at the start, but I think it was Zack Ryder recently who said that it's only internet marks that use the term jobbers. I would counter that by saying it's only jobbers that use the term internet marks. Because I think...
But you just used the term.
What, for jobber?
Internet mark.
Internet mark.
Are you a jobber?
I'm definitely a jobber. I'm really torn as to whether jobber is offensive or not. I mean, it's just what they were called. It is a term that was used, and I think it was Cornette on one of his recent podcasts actually said, like, basically, you know, that's what they were known. Even in the industry, that's what they were called. So Zack Ryder saying that, it doesn't ring true, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But
Matt Cardona,
yeah. But what I do agree with him on is that I do think that the word jobber does actually come now with maybe some disrespect associated to it.
Oh, absolutely.
But it shouldn't.
No, because someone's getting paid just to perform,
but it's
like a winner.
It's what they were called as well. If you were hired to put someone over, you was a jobber. But now it's used as a slang term. Oh, you're just a jobber. You're just a jobber. Right? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Really putting people down. It's kind of like cleaner. Oh, you're just a cleaner. But being
it's the same thing where people are like, the Avengers, it's just Hawkeye. It's not Captain America. It's like, dude, Hawkeye's doing his thing, though.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So I'm really torn as to what you should call jobbers. They've always been called jobbers, but is it a bit more politically correct to say enhancement talent these days?
I just like enhancement talent because it's, in my eyes, it's always like the local guys that have no music, barely ever have a name unless it's something to make fun of the area that they're filming or something, and lose in a few seconds, and it's funny. Enhancement talent.
The only thing I would say to that is that if enhancement talent is the term that gets chosen as we go forward as a society, you know what's going to happen next is what's just happened to the term jobber. That everyone will just start saying, oh, you're just enhancement talent. And then the same negative connotations connected to jobber will just move to enhancement talent. And then all of a sudden, you shouldn't be calling people enhancement talent. And
to quote the great Tay Swift, haters gonna hate.
Haters are gonna hate, yeah.
No matter what we do, they will hate. But jobber's gonna job, you know? Jobbers are the one at the end of the day getting paid.
Absolutely.
Not people on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. Shout out to Facebook grannies.
But I suppose just to close that part of the conversation, I really want to make it clear that when we use the term jobber, it is absolutely not in a disrespectful way, because I love some of these people that we're going to be talking about, and they really, really provided a lot, and I've had a lot of fun researching this video. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into one person in particular. Was there any that you wanted to raise up, or any other points that you wanted to bring up?
I wouldn't categorize him as a jobber, but I love when John Cena would job, because he did it a ton. And one could say that his WrestleMania career is one of a jobber. And he's kind of like a top-tier jobber, basically, putting over new talent. He didn't always, but when he did, it was very important and very cool. that he was never afraid to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I suppose jobbing is putting over someone else, isn't it? As you said, it's impossible to call Cena a jobber because that's not his primary focus. But there's definitely times where he did lose and job out and put people over. But yeah, I mean, he definitely is someone that did that at times, but you could argue not enough. I think a lot of the criticism against John Cena was that he didn't do it more often, most notably against the Nexus at that SummerSlam. And also, I think there was quite a bit of anger that he didn't put over Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 30 because Bray Wyatt had such momentum and he was going up against John Cena. Cena just didn't really need the win at that point. Cena's WrestleMania career is very interesting because you are right. I mean, he did lose to the likes of The Rock, and you know he lost recently to the likes of Undertaker. Seemingly lost maybe to the Fiend. I don't know in that whatever that Firefly Funhouse thing was. So seemingly lost there. So yeah, he's definitely got a few L's on his record, and that's quite comparable to say Triple H, who's also actually got a lot of L's on his WrestleMania record. Losing 3 times to The Undertaker, losing to Roman Reigns, for example, losing to Daniel Bryan, for example. Certainly in more recent years, he's been there to put other people over and to lose matches. But I still can't get past the fact he wouldn't lose to Sting, and I still can't get past the fact he wouldn't lose to Booker T. Like those two in particular really upset me. And it's kind of crazy that he has got quite a few losses on his WrestleMania record. I think his WrestleMania record's one of the worst. So he has jobbed at WrestleMania quite a bit, but not enough. Not enough.
So it's just the one. No, the two. If he lost those 2 as well, then he'd be
those
WrestleMania jobber.
Yeah, those 2 really do bug me though. Those are 2 of my least favourite results in all the history of wrestling. So I've got a name, Duane Gill, aka Gilberg. When I think of jobbers, this is definitely a name that comes to mind. He arrived in I want to say like the early 90s. And he would actually be used as a jobber as a tag team with Barry Hardy and also as a solo star. And he was actually in a team called the Executioners that were used as jobbers. They were under masks. It was him and Barry Hardy. But they were on the first ever episode of Raw. They put over the Steiner brothers. They also then dressed as Toxic Turtles. And they were dressed basically as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that didn't last for long, obviously, because there was a whole copyright issue there. But he was around for a good few years, just putting people over. He ended up getting released, I believe, leaving, but came back in 98. And they actually brought him back to face Mankind. And they gave, they built up that Mankind was he was going to face someone that had an incredible win-loss record, and they really built it up. And then it turned out to be Duane Gill, who did have an incredible win-loss record. It's just that the losses were the incredible part of that record. Yeah. And then he went on. They kept him around, and he joined the Job Squad. There was actually a squad of jobbers that got together that was called the Job Squad. So it was Al Snow, Scorpio, and it was Bob Holly, and it was Duane Gill. And it was around this point that they gave him a massive win. They were trying to actually push the Job Squad a little bit, and Duane Gill became the light heavyweight champion. WWE used to have a light heavyweight championship, and Gill actually won it. He beat Christian. And then, obviously, he had the whole Gilberg thing. So they started to build him up as Gilberg to rival WCW's Goldberg. So where Goldberg would say, who's next, then Gilberg would say, who's first. And also where Goldberg was having a 176 winning streak. He won 176 matches. They were trying to give Gilberg a 176 losing streak. Like, they were constantly trying to rib on the Goldberg character by using Gilberg. And actually, when Goldberg came to WWE, there's a great moment where they brought out Gilberg and the two are face to face. So, there's a really, really good career that Duane Gill had. And the cherry on top was because he was doing all this Gilberg stuff, they kind of forgot about the light heavyweight championship. By the time he lost it, he'd actually held it for 15 months. And he's actually now listed as the longest reigning light heavyweight champion in its history. Because basically they forgot about it. So
I love it.
Yeah, I love that story. And I love Gilberg. There's a lot of love for Gilberg as well.
Recently retired.
Recently retired? Yeah, retired.
He recently retired. Yeah, a few months ago. Pre-COVID. Good time.
Yeah, wow. Miss
Get
it.
out.
I think we all miss it. Was there any others that you wanted to mention or any other aspects that you wanted to touch on at all?
Bowser from the Super Mario series. Always willing to lose to Mario. I don't think he's ever won.
So that's kind of just outside of the wrestling world jobber.
Yeah, he's a good jobber.
Have you got a favorite jobber
From wrestling?
Let's keep it wrestling.
Well, I went through the list of jobbers, and it's all people before my time.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know them. And like Gilberg, I know just because he'd show up.
But it's nothing. I have no personal emotional connection to any of these people like you probably do. So unfortunately, the jobber mindset is not one that I have, a favorite jobber mindset, because I have ascended and I am post-jobber lifestyle.
Can I just say that during you talking there, your microphone changed, your pitch went down, and I think the highlight of this whole stream, there's no way we'll ever beat this, is you in a deeper voice saying, "I have ascended," like this, and it was just like, I think you have. Honestly, I think you have gone to a higher plane. It is
This episode, man.
Oh, what an episode! Hey, let's talk about who I think is the greatest jobber of all time. Who I think is, everyone needs to check this guy out. He's had some incredible moments. 30-odd year career. We've already mentioned his name. It's the Brooklyn Brawler. The Brooklyn Brawler, Steve Lombardi. He was also Kamala's handler, Kimchi. He was also, when Matt Bourne left, he was Doink for a short time. He was also Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, who was a baseball guy. And he had like a baseball outfit on. He had his face painted like a baseball. Again, he was just a jobber. But at least it was something a little bit different for him to do. But I'm going to just quickly take a few minutes just to blast through his history, because this is incredible stuff, right? So he joined in 1983. And he was getting a few draws and a couple of wins and whatever, but he was a jobber pretty much from the start. And he was losing to anyone and everyone. Bret Hart, Big John Studd, just anyone and everyone. He managed to get 5 wins in total in 1985, and he was used on all the house shows, all the TV shows. He was like, they worked jobbers and Brawler in particular. They worked them hard. They were just constantly being used to constantly put people over and give, the talent a little higher up the pecking order, give them wins. So he was doing that for like 6 years. And then in 1989, still with WWE on a consistent, regular basis, Red Rooster, awful gimmick. A guy that was literally a rooster. He split up with Bobby the Brain Heenan. And all of a sudden, Heenan wanted someone to, face the Rooster, his ex-client. And so he started working with the Brooklyn Brawler a little bit. So it was a little moment there where all of a sudden the Brawler was hanging out with Bobby the Brain Heenan. Wasn't really much that came of it. Brooklyn Brawler got a match on Saturday night's main event in 1989 against the Red Rooster, obviously losing. And so things carried on. Like, he just went back to being the jobber after that. It was like a little highlight for him, and then just went back to jobbing. Carried on. 1993, he actually had a slight change of gimmick, and he became MVP. And obviously, he wasn't called that for very long. I think that gimmick...
The MVP?
Not the MVP, but the original MVP.
Oh,
so
okay.
he was... I think this was still the Abe Knuckleball Schwartz gimmick. This is where they started going towards like a baseball gimmick for him. But they called him MVP. They would go back to it again, but change the name. And then, of course, the MVP name would be used later for the MVP we now know and love. But it was around this time that he would go on to be Doink. He'd be Kimchi. He would be also a Red Knight as well. Can't wait to put that picture up. That'll look cool. Yeah, you know, they just kept using him. He kept jobbing. He also, though, in 1997, probably got one of the highlights of his career. At this point, he'd been used on a regular basis for 14 years on house shows and everything. And I love this story. I can't wait to get stuck into this. So, Ken Shamrock in 97 was meant to win a battle royal at Madison Square Garden, but Ken Shamrock got injured. Now, because it was in Madison Square Garden, Vince was like, okay, well, who should we have win? Let's go with the Brawler. Let's give the Brooklyn Brawler. Makes sense. Brooklyn, New York. We'll give the Brooklyn Brawler the victory in this battle royal. So he booked Brooklyn Brawler to win. Nice little surprise moment. Nice moment for the Brawler. Didn't think anything else of it. Show goes ahead. As I think it's literally as the show is happening, it suddenly dawns on Vince that the prize for winning the Battle Royal is a title opportunity. And Brooklyn Brawler actually still wins the Battle Royal and gets a title shot. So I don't know when it was. It might have been the next night or a few weeks later. It's Shawn Michaels versus the Brooklyn Brawler for the WWE Championship. And there's a great story whereby Undertaker arrived, looked at the sheet of all the matches, and he was like, what the F is this? Because he saw that he was actually lower down the card than the Brooklyn Brawler was, who was getting a title shot. And he was like, what the F is going on? Because no one had told him. Apparently, I'd love to see the match. I've never seen it, but it's 15 minutes long. Brooklyn Brawler does really well. He dominates the match, but ends up losing because Chyna and Triple H interfere. But that is like an absolute pinnacle for him. Absolute pinnacle. Later in 97, I don't know if it was later or earlier, actually. It must have been earlier. But in 97, Brett offered to drop the title to the Brooklyn Brawler. He actually said, look, this is around the Montreal Screwjob. He said, I am not dropping the title to Shawn Michaels. I'll drop it to anyone. I'll drop it to the Brawler if you want. That he actually offered to drop the title to the Brooklyn Brawler because he just didn't want to lose the title to Brett and go through the Montreal Screwjob. He kept jobbing anyway, after that another pinnacle for him, but he kept jobbing. He competed in the WrestleMania 17 Battle Royal. He was Kimchi, so he actually got to compete at WrestleMania 17. He briefly became the Boston Brawler in 2005 as well, so represented Boston, and he had a match against Kurt Angle in ECW. Just kept like making little appearances. The highlight, though, one of the highlights was in 2012. He's actually on the TLC pay-per-view because it's 3MB versus Miz and Alberto Del Rio. And in 2012, TLC, it was held at the Barclays Center, which had only just opened in Brooklyn. And so they wanted a surprise partner. They wanted a little pop. And so they went and got one of Brooklyn's finest. They got the Brooklyn Brawler. And so he came out as the mystery person. And I was watching this match, and it's brilliant. The crowd are totally on board, cheering the Brooklyn Brawler. He gets tagged. He doesn't look great in the match by this stage. I mean, obviously, this is, nearly 30 years after he first joined. But he ends up winning the match. He puts on the Boston Crab to Jinder Mahal, I think it is. And, on commentary, they're like, it's the Brooklyn Crab. It's the Brooklyn Crab. So that was really, really cool. He ends up getting released in 2016, but he does come back in 2018. And actually at Raw 25, there's a little backstage segment with him and the earlier mentioned Curt Hawkins, where Curt Hawkins was going through his losing streak, and Brooklyn Brawler actually gives him some words of advice. So he's just some great, great moments. And as I said, he's got a book. He's got an audio book and everything. And I haven't got it, but I really am considering picking it up, because 30 years of stories, man. 30 years of putting other people over and making them look good. Nothing but respect for him.
And to be able to work with so many different people and have a career for that long, it's really a master, a ring general.
Yeah. I mean, he is someone that would be able to go up to Vince and be like, yeah, this guy's good, or I'm not sure about this. I just felt that this and this wasn't quite where it needed to be. I'm sure he would have built up that. They would have had that respect for him to have, put his thoughts across. 30 odd years backstage. I mean, the stuff he will have seen, the stories I'm sure he's got. I have got to get, I don't know if I'll find one. I don't even know if they ever made one. I have got to get a Brooklyn Brawler t-shirt. I've got to.
Make it.
That has got to be one of the coolest items. A Brooklyn Brawler. You've got to be a wrestling fan to even have heard of him. And 30 odd years in WWE. He, for me, this is a no-brainer. He goes in the Hall of Fame. No-brainer. It's not even up for discussion. 30 odd years.
A pro wrestling tees shop.
There is a pro wrestling tee shop one. I'll tell you what, the second this is over, I'm straight on there and I'm buying that. Not even joking. Don't even care what it looks like. To represent someone that worked for WWE for 30 years, who only had a few highlights throughout that time, and most of the other time he just worked tirelessly to put over other stars, deserves all the respect in the world. And that's why I was saying earlier, even if this is called jobbers, and even if there are maybe some negative connotations or connections to that term, there's no negativity here, because it's nothing but respect for what these people have done. So
yeah, they train, they put their body through so much. It's like, why would we insult them for playing characters that lost?
Yeah, definitely,
because they're not legitimate losers.
No, not at all. I mean, they could have been booked differently and been booked as main event talent. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's only how
Thanos, people of Bowser.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it. I mean, there's other jobbers that could have been mentioned. People like Barry Horowitz, who is very, very famous jobber that was around for quite a while as well. SD Jones, who was a jobber, but actually was a jobber that featured on the first WrestleMania. He lost to King Kong Bundy. He was meant to lose in 9 seconds, but apparently he didn't want that record, so he tried to delay it a little bit, and I think it's actually 27 seconds. He delayed it for as long as he could, but it was meant to be 9. Playing the system. Don't let the system play you. You play the system. Was there any other bits that you wanted to drop in before we say goodbye for this week's episode?
Oh, I totally unplugged my mic.
Oh, I can still hear you, but it seems quite. It started to sound a little quieter.
Yes.
That's better. That's better. I think what had happened was your computer must have been picking you up, because I could still hear you, but it was definitely quieter.
I think it was the webcam.
I think this has been probably the biggest sham of an episode we've ever done.
It's so hot here, and it's just like I'm sweating. I'm not at my peak.
No.
I have ascended, but I'm not at my peak. And I did have some things to say. Oh yeah, everyone tune in next week when we go over the reveal of the dirt. I know that's something that...
Is that next week?
That's next week, unless you have it ready.
I do actually have it over there now. It's managed to make it into the same room that I am in.
So by next week, it should be
next
to you.
Next week, it should be even closer, yes.
Perfect.
So, very exciting. Very, very exciting. Any plans for this week?
Yeah, New Japan Strongman. So good. Fred
Flintstone?
Rosser.
Okay.
Have you heard?
No.
The hype. Oh, he showed up. Darren Young showed up on New Japan and killed it. Such a good job.
I did hear the hype of him, but I didn't know that was his real name.
Yeah.
Fred Dosser.
Looked like $1 million.
Really?
It was awesome. Yeah. I want to see more of him because it was totally a surprise.
Okay. And is he affiliated with anyone?
No, he's a free agent.
So he's not in Bullet Club or LIJ or anything yet?
No, he was just there for a one-off. Hopefully he'll be back for more.
Very cool. Someone else that was kind of used as a jobber during his time, very much so to put other people over. They tried to kind of rejuvenate him by putting him with Bob Backlund, but that didn't quite work. But I loved that. I loved him with Bob Backlund. I was really
Bob Backlund's fun.
Bob Backlund is fun.
It's a great character.
Yeah.
Both in and outside of the ring.
Quite the character.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. We're done. Thank you so much for everyone bearing with this episode, bearing with the fact that it's just constantly been falling apart technically. But we jobbed out. We ground it out. We might have taken the L, but we were there, and that's what that's what jobbers do. That's what jobbers do. Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully see you again next time. Bye for now. Yeah. Hopefully.